Welcome to What's the Dealio podcast. Today I have a very special guest. He's a mentor to me. He's an unbelievable businessman. I would love to welcome Ken Weiner. Hi, Ken.
Great to be here today. Thank you, Michael.
Of course.
I love this stuff. Very impressed with what you're doing.
Thank you so much. So today I want to go over, a little bit about you, a little bit about the car wash business deals. But the first question I have is, who are you?
Who is Ken Weiner? Ken Weiner is first 62-year-old father of two lovely daughters, 26 and 27, married to the same wonderful woman, Susan, for 35 years now. Started from humble roots, from Brooklyn to Howard Beach. Moved there at 12 years old as Kenny Weiner. So in that neighborhood, I had to learn how to take care of myself at a young age. Did very well. Worked as a busboy to a waiter while I was from 12 to graduating college. Queens College did me well. Went to PricewaterhouseCoopers, 1984. Spent 11 years there, all financial services. Then after that, I went to a firm that's unfortunately no longer with us, but I had the heart of my career there, 1995 to 2008 at Credit Suisse. I ran most of the internal audit function, or largest parts of it, in a huge company. I also started up a risk management function there before I left, so a great 13-year career. Enjoyed myself, made lots of friends, business colleagues, and people that I still deal with today. After that, I went to Swiss Re, where I retired as the America's Chief Risk Officer in 2015. At that point in time, deciding what I wanted to do with a nice amount of experience and wealth that I built up. I'm fortunate enough to have lots of good friends. I was best man at 4 weddings. I decided I wanted to set up some kind of investment group and have my friends participate in it. So I started with a friends and family investment group and was trying to figure out, well, what should the investments be? And one of the key streams ended up being car washes.
And why did you pick car washes? What's so good about the business?
Service industry, recession-proof. People like a clean car. It's a good, honest business if you run it the right way. And for the most part, people appreciate the service, and if you give quality, they'll be back.
Sure. And, what was, when you left Credit Suisse and you started your own, it's called the Empire Car Wash Group now.
Yes.
What really made you leave? What made you leave corporate?
Well, I'd spent 30-plus years working in major companies, had a lot of experience. Over time, being a passionate guy, always loved what I did, and I like to make a difference, and I believe I made a difference wherever I went. Comes a point in life, though, you want to be your own guy.
Sure.
So I brought a lot of experience, and it was a couple of things. Creating a lifestyle that would facilitate longevity. I was 54 years old when I decided to start this. I knew I would be traveling less. I spent a lot of time on planes, way too much. I could spend more time with my family. I could continue to emphasize health and a lifestyle, working out, eating right.
You're in the gym every day.
Yes, and flexibility is important. Being a CEO of a group, I'm not running operations. I'm fortunate enough to have found people that can do that, and that was the key to me. I had no interest in running a business. I had an interest in leading, and being the chief executive of something that could really create value.
And that's why you're scaling so much. I mean, you bought your first wash in 2015, right?
Yes.
And that
January 2016 was our closing. It was in Far Rockaway, New York. I was fortunate enough to find 3 hard-working brothers, squarers, who've been in the business since they were kids. with their family, and I deliberately bought their car wash because I knew having them we could scale. And another gentleman by the name of Russell Siegel, he took me around, having been in the industry managing a car wash that we now own. He took me to car washes all over Long Island, and we honed in on the Empire Car Wash in Far Rockaway because of what I saw in terms of the guys. It wasn't necessarily the ideal car wash. We built it up. We did good things there, but then we expanded. We next went to Elmont, bought the hand car wash right across the street from Belmont Racetrack.
Is that by Home Depot, that car wash?
It's not the one in Home Depot. It's the one right by. It's the one right by Belmont Racetrack.
Got it.
It's a sleeper. You pull up there, you wouldn't necessarily realize that this is over 100-foot tunnel. That it's high-end service with a huge convenience store, and we turned a car wash that was sleepy and not performing well because it was an absentee owner, and we've just blown it up. After that, simultaneously, we took over a car wash in Inwood, New York, that was owned by an estate. It was being it's on a property that the new owner was rebuilding a gas station that the car wash resided on. So we built up the car wash, put brand new equipment, top of the line equipment, started from scratch, and really grew that as well.
And all of your car washes are full service, right?
All of our car washes are full service. You know, my model, or our model, the Empire Car Wash Group's model, is that we know that Long Island, for the most part, is a full service market. It's a very fragmented industry, owning 8, going on 9 car washes. In Nassau County and Suffolk County, we are the biggest group. It shows how fragmented the industry is. There's operators that are doing a nice job in building express car washes, and there's certainly a demographic for that.
Yeah, I think Long Island's more of a full service.
Yes.
You know, people don't want to get out of the. I mean, people want to get out. People really want their car washed and that white glove service, right? They don't want to get out of the car, vacuum their car.
Right. Some people who are not as fussy about the product and just want a quick in and out, and even are happy to do the inside themselves, which is certainly not my wife, the people I know, my demographic, but there's a butt for every seat.
Yeah.
What this has really done is it's created more business for the Empire Group because there's less full service car washes. We focus on finding car washes are good, that make cash flow, and by using our model, providing quality service efficiently, and offering a membership option, which is key, because I didn't get into car washing to be a weatherman. If it rains out and you don't have membership, you make no money.
That's the name of the game. It's the reoccurring revenue, and I say this in a lot of my videos. That's the most valuable income out there because rain or shine, when it rains, a typical car wash, they're closed. When you have the memberships, no matter what, you get that hit every month.
Exactly. So our strategy, put simply, is we have a group, very strong operators. We've made what we do systematic and replicatable. Anytime we take on a new wash, we can easily replicate what we've built elsewhere. We like to buy at first car washes. We got some of the car washes for 3 times cash flow early days. So now we find that a deal is fine as long as we're not paying more than 6 for a car wash that's a really good car wash that doesn't need to have much put into it but still has upside. So it's somewhere between, say an average multiple that we're happy to pay is 5. And the beauty is that we are ultimately going to do a roll-up where we take our entire group, however many washes we have, and multiples on car washes are going for good group with scale and a good infrastructure go for 15 to 20 times.
Yeah,
And
especially
in
with
a
that
worst
type of
in a
EBITDA.
worst case 12 times.
With that type of EBITDA that we're talking about, I would say 15 to 20 times, because you're not going to find a lot of groups and washes out there like washes he has.
Right.
But when you look at a car wash, going back to when you buy car washes, what do you find when a typical owner of a car wash, they don't really have their books in order and it's hard to do due diligence. How do you really, look at the PO? Like, how do you do your due diligence on a car wash? What are your, tactics, you would say?
Well, first I sit down with the owner and I try to get him to be as open and honest as he can about his business, recognizing that most of these folks don't put all of it on a tax return.
Sure.
Then I try to get them to really give me perspective on where the cash goes that isn't on the tax return. And oftentimes it goes to cash payrolls. They then put certain money in their pocket. My view is, under your mattress, you can't invest it. So, by the way, every car wash that we own, every single dime, nickel, penny, quarter, dollar goes in the bank. If we couldn't be successful that way, wouldn't be in the business. So then we asked to see POS records, which is the Bible. Now, a lot of car wash owners don't record everything on the POS.
I have a question, though, for you. If someone doesn't record their sales and you're going to record your sales, you have to look at the tax expense, that tax expense as an additional expense, right? Because you would have to pay the payroll taxes, you would have to pay because you put everything on the books. So that would come out of the bottom line.
Right. So what I do is I take their numbers as reported, and we add back all the cash revenues that aren't recorded, all of the cash expenses. Then for payroll, we have to add on taxes that they aren't paying because they're not paying everything on the books. On top of that, the workers' comp that you have to pay, whether it's 2-3 cents for every dollar of payroll, whatever it is, that adds up, and it changes the whole complexion of the payroll. Then the other thing is, if you're not reporting all your sales, you're not paying all your sales taxes.
Of course.
So I take the approach that someone else might want to run the business that way, but I'm not going to pay to enrich someone for the cash that they put in their pocket. In my mind, that's a penalty to them. And I show the rationale and I build it into what my offer is. And many times, or most times, if it's the right location, we end up striking a deal because we get the owner to realize that I would rather sell to someone that knows what they're doing than to sell to someone, especially if they're going to hold some kind of note, sell to someone who's going to end up failing and I have to take the car wash back.
Sure. And because of your credibility, the likelihood of that happening is slim to none.
Right, right.
And what do you see as far as, the biggest expense in the car wash business is the payroll.
Yep.
For the full service market, what do you think the sweet spot number is to keep that payroll at? 30%? 35%?
If someone tells me they're at 30%, I'll say they're lying.
Yeah.
If someone who's running their business and paying cash payrolls even tells me they're at 35%, I know they're often lying. Yeah. Especially if I look at their equipment, because I know they're not going to be as efficient as they could be.
Sure. Especially
if they don't have membership. In my group, our goal and our metric is 35%. Anytime that I see someone over 35%, one of my guys, they'll get an immediate question. And we have tools and processes in place to measure and manage proactively how we stay within our guidelines.
That's why you're scaling so quick. So now you have 8 going on 9. What are your goals, you would say, in the next 24 to 48 months? Do you want to, how much, what are your goals as far as targeting?
So our targeting is doubling EBITDA and doubling bottom line. Growing our membership to the point where in all locations it represents at least 50% of our revenues.
So the membership, revenue is 50% of the gross revenue.
Right.
So that's why you could get that. That's why I can argue you could get that 15 to 20 times multiple, because that reoccurring revenue is worth, it's worth at minimum that.
Exactly.
Look at SaaS businesses.
Right. Well, let's look at franchises with royalties.
Yeah.
This is not very different.
Yeah.
You're essentially buying a royalty stream if you're an investor. Private equity loves car washes. They love storage centers. They love all these service businesses that could scale, grow quickly, and they can build on. And they love it especially if it's efficient and there's an infrastructure in place that they can leverage. What's happening in the investing world is that it's harder and harder to find, especially for private equity, to find deals that will provide sufficient returns for the investors in the private equity fund and even the general partner. So our approach, we are a friends and family private equity. When we do sell, we'll have a team that's in place that will make the life of the new owner, whether it be a family office or a private equity company that's bigger than us, in a great position. So getting back to the goal is to provide quality every day, consistently. That's what makes people come back. If you provide quality, as long as the price is not outrageous, you get a premium price. You don't have to sit and worry about the guy down the street, what his price is, especially if you offer membership at a good value.
I love it. You've taught me a lot. So we've known each other since 2018,
I believe.
2018. So 5 years. We've done 4 deals, four locations. The first location, I realized who I was. I've been selling car washes for about a decade, and when I met you, you were much different from any other car wash owner operator. You were just mentally different. You had a different, something was, the first time I met you I met you before, but I met you at that diner when we met with the buyers for that car wash. And you looked at me in my face and you're like, Mike, do I look like I'm effing around? And I'm like, damn. Do you remember that?
I remember it very well. Because Mike was doing what brokers do before. He was trying to guide me and saying what he thought a good price and a good deal was. And
you were the seller. You were the seller.
And trying to get me to give certain concessions and make certain realizations that I wasn't going to make. And I looked him in his eyes and I said, that's serious.
In front of the buyers.
In front of the buyers. I'm not effing around. And then after they left, I was even more animated. I looked in his face. Look in my eyes. Look in my eyes.
You remember, yeah.
Do you hear what I'm saying? Listen to what I'm saying, because I'm going to keep repeating it.
And you know what's crazy about that deal? We got them, they paid, exactly what we were asking. We didn't negotiate $1.
Exactly. And it was interesting because we were dealing with a different culture with some level of language barrier.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did get out of, and why I view it as such a gift that I had the career I had, a boy from Queens,
Howard Beach,
where I grew up. I didn't know much about other cultures. I didn't know about anything other than New York. I knew about the gym, my friends, working hard, studying hard, and the world became a much bigger place, and I embraced it as I experienced different cultures and all different kinds of people. I remember the first time Price Waterhouse, we went out. I don't eat Burger King anymore. But every once in a while you go and you eat, go to Burger King, you get a Whopper or whatever. I remember I was with a a guy who I really became close with at Price Waterhouse, an Indian guy, and he observed a way of eating that you don't eat meat, right? So he asked for a Whopper without the meat. Yeah, I was
They
there.
have those.
Now they do,
Yeah.
but there was no meat. It was a Whopper with cheese and some lettuce on it at that point. So I thought that was hilarious at 25 years old with one of my best friends who also was a Price Waterhouse. And
That is funny.
I've come a long way, and learning how to deal with people from all countries. The Far East, people are very different, and their culture is different. The people in Switzerland, who I worked with for a long time, I had to learn how to deal with them, and they're very different than Germans, who are a lot more direct.
Yeah.
Brits typically get along well with the Americans, but they're depending on where they're from, they could be a lot more formal and not as direct. Australians, I find, are the most like Americans. They're a bit more boisterous on average, but they get along very well with Americans, and it's easy culturally. So
all different types of walks.
Without that, my world would have been a lot different. I would have been more sheltered. I would have been a lot less open. I wouldn't be the man I am today.
Yeah, I mean, your experience really brought you to who you are today, and that going back to that deal. So that deal was in Nassau County. It was in 2019. That deal. I think it was in 2000. Right? Was it? No,
it was
2021.
2021.
Sorry, 2021. These guys were so happy with the car wash because everything he represented was 100% accurate. They bought another wash, and they're just, they love the car wash business because of him, because of the numbers and the transparency, which you don't see a lot in this business. A lot of times, like we've been through so many washes, a lot of times these guys, they tell you something, and then when it comes to prove it, they can't give you the numbers, right?
Absolutely. And that's another thing, starting out as a CPA and an auditor and a risk manager. Look, if I'm at some of the most complicated financial institutions in the world, working there and dealing with this stuff, I could certainly, with due respect, plow through verifying a car wash easily.
Yeah.
So that's an advantage, and again, but I couldn't do any of this without my team. One of the big mistakes that guys from my background who say, "Oh, car wash is a great investment," they underestimate how difficult it is actually to operate. That it's not as sexy as it seems. Oh, cars, you're washing cars. It's cars all day, and sometimes they say, "I'm going to put my dumb cousin, my wife, my son who doesn't know what he wants to do for a career," and they fail, or they're selling very quickly.
Yeah, it's not a business. Everyone says it's an absentee business. It's really not. If you have one location, it could be, but you have to really be there in the beginning to make sure everything is running. But I do have a question for you. What's one piece of advice you would give to someone who's looking for any type of business, before they get into the business? Just your best piece of advice you would give to them. What do you think?
Understand why you want it, and that you really have a passion about it. Everyone, don't start with the dollars you think you can make and work backwards.
Yeah.
If you don't have a passion for something, you're not going to like it. Money, in my mind, is a scorecard. In the end, the person within is what matters, and if you have skills, you're always going to have money.
Absolutely.
Doing things the right way and doing what you believe in, and being part of a team you like goes a long way to making you happy every day. Even as you know what it is, when stuff goes south or the day isn't good, I've always told people that's why they call it a job. When you own it. You can't close your eyes. But at the same point in time, you really have to love what you're doing. And don't think that there's any quick road to make money, and there isn't. It's going to be hard work, and figure out what your objective is and where you want to get to. And think with the end in mind. Don't think with the beginning. If I didn't think with the end in mind, I wouldn't have.
When you say end in mind, exit plan?
Yes, or everything in life. What's the end goal?
Yeah.
What's the end goal? You can always bring it down to that, and what are the steps to get there?
Absolutely. I always, when I talk to clients about buying businesses, I always tell them the same thing. Always think of your exit plan when you buy the business as well, so you can roadmap on where you want to be and really set goals. And setting goals is so important. But going back to our relationship, so in the last, I would say, a year and a half, we've really cultivated a strong relationship, not just business, but at this point we're friends.
Absolutely.
And, Ken has really helped me in my business look at the business at a bird's eye view and help me scale my business. Just not telling me exactly what to do, but just the presence of him around and the way he thinks about things. I just want to let you know, I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you. And that's that's the thing that means most to me. I don't there's plenty of people out there that call too many people their friends, and I don't let people in so easily. But when I find the right person, I will devote the time. And Mike is really a great guy, and the time that's invested is valuable, because when you're doing something with someone you like and you see that they're receptive, no defensiveness at all ever, and soaks things up. And despite the fact that he's 30 years younger than me, I learned things from him too.
Thank you.
You have to, as you grow, lose the arrogance of thinking that you can't learn from everybody.
I appreciate that. I'm always learning every day. There's people that don't have that mindset where they think they know everything, and they yes you to death, and that's your biggest problem is you if you have that mindset. So always be learning. This is a great podcast. One or two more last questions. In the car wash business, when you're buying a location, what do you think the ideal cash on cash return is? Not multiple, not ROI, cash on cash. You put down $1 million. How quickly you make that $1 million back? What's your target on that?
I try to make it back in 4 years.
25%.
Yeah, 25%. Depending on what you're buying and how long it takes you to transform, it could take longer. You might end up getting 10% the first year, and then 20%, and as time goes on, you're just growing the top line and the bottom line. So in the end, it might take you 5 years or even longer, but the question is, what is your upside? So I won't buy anything that doesn't start with an additive, somewhat of an additive. It has to add cash flow to my group, otherwise why would I buy it?
Sure.
So when you're scaled, you have the latitude to bring in something that is a diamond in the rough. And one of the locations that we're looking at now, the third of three, it's the
best.
It's got huge upside because the property and location is great, the demographic is great, and everything about it, we can probably quadruple sales.
I'm surprised they're even doing that much sales the way the condition it's in.
Yeah. But it's so you have to really look at immediate returns, upside, and when you're in the beginning, challenge yourself to say, okay, what if I needed to get rid of this?
Yeah.
Is it priced in such a way that how much could I end up losing, or is it priced well enough so that if I didn't like it, I can sell it and and at least get all my money back.
Yeah, not talking about names. We did a deal where we were able to get the seller to hold paper. We were able to get bank financing. This is so much different than just general real estate because there's so much creativity into this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you see a lot of these deals, like the car washes you bought, a lot of the owners held paper on the deals, or?
Yeah, the owners had to hold paper. There's a couple of reasons. So, humbling experience to go from an executive with a tax return, and that said it all, to businesses that are fledgling and you haven't owned for too long, buying in an industry where what you're buying on a tax return isn't all there. So banks are only going to look at what's all there.
Sure.
So by its very nature at the beginning, most car wash buyers in this market, there's a lot of seller notes involved. And fortunately, we've gotten to the position where, you want a seller to have some skin in the game, but at the same point in time, at least we can now go to banks in a difficult environment, and they like the profile of our group. And while not being highly leveraged on the first 6 transactions we've done, very, very low, remarkably low, because of the strength of my group and the people in it, we're now actually able to get bank financing, even in a market that's not a great market with all the fear out there. I will say that banks themselves are fearful, and I understand why. They like to do what they know, and they say they want to do owner-occupied businesses, but they like to lay off a good part of the risk to the SBA. You've got to be careful about what SBA deal you do. Yeah. And
what are rates now? Almost 10%, right? SBA 7As?
SBA 7A is 10%. 504, if you're a big enough business like we are, you can get below 7. And a traditional bank traditional lending bank that will loan to owner occupied, while they want to focus on the real estate, they will still take some of the exposure to the business. So you can get financing if you have a good value proposition and a history. You can still get financing, in the 7s right now.
And what are these sellers, when you did a seller note, what was, not the last deal, the other deals, what kind of rates were you getting from the sellers?
I got less than as low as 5 and no higher than 6. And the deal that we did, we gave, a nice, our rate I think was 5.25 to the seller, and we also were able to pass on an SBA note that they could enjoy 3.75%.
That was a creative structure.
Right, exactly. And we had to, ward off the desire of the seller to say, well, what if I give you cash? Well, we don't take cash.
Yeah. What are we going to do with it?
So it was it's fun to do these deals. I don't want to say I'm a deal junkie, but I'm a junkie about getting things done.
You are. You definitely. That's one thing I would love to say, is that you get it done.
Yeah.
And to conclude this, that's something I would like to say. This man right here gets the job done. He's an action. He takes action. He executes. And, I really appreciate you taking the time to come down and see me on the podcast and get on here and share your story. I think it was the best podcast we had. And thank you so much for coming, Ken.
Thank you, Mike. Greatly appreciated.
I appreciate it.